right. Welcome everybody. Welcome to today's Health and Fitness Hacks panel call with Ed Lay. Hi, Ed.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing great. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for our call. And for those who are just joining us, if you are on Facebook, please do not hesitate in putting in any questions you have for us today. I will relay it to Ed while we're on our call. So head on over, put on your comments. For those who have not signed up to our members only platform, Ed does an incredible morning routine, morning hacks every single morning during the week at 7:30 a.m. only for our members. So head on over to www.hackmankind.com and you will have access to our schedule, a member only platform. Right now we are offering free membership for the first 1,000 people that sign up. So head on over, make sure you're signed up, because then, I mean, you can sign up later, but it will be paid. So I would rather just give it to you for free for now. So head on over right now and let's get started. I'm super excited. So Ed, my questions, before we start getting questions on Facebook and here on the Zoom as well, if you put on your Q&A, please put under your questions on Q&A. So quarantine, are you quarantined right now?
Not really, no. So the country officially started opening back up Monday. So that means schools going back, but the only extent that we ever got to was no groups of more than 10. So you know, I moved from the UK, so most of my social media news is from the UK and from America. So there's lots of the British people going, why aren't we more quarantined here? But yeah, the fact is that we, although some businesses, restaurants and hairdressers and fitness businesses were all asked to close, the quarantine extent has not been anywhere close to the UK or America.
So what would you say, that's really interesting. And so what would you say for you? Well, you have the fitness centers that are closed, so that kind of relates to some of us that, you know, have not been able to go out and aren't able to do anything. I'm in New York City, so it's all shut down. What has been the most interesting challenge, shift that you've had to make?
Well, we've had our children at home, right? So schools have been closed. So I guess the most interesting thing has been adapting to trying to work at the same time as having the kids around, and then working out how to teach them, and you know, how to keep them stimulated, learning, calm during this time while being able to work as well.
I love that. What you're saying is staying calm while it's all going on at the same time and managing it all. And that kind of links to our panelist call with Karen on Thursdays, where she goes in depth on how to handle that and what are her hacks on that. And she's an incredible educator. And then you added it at how to stay calm. So I feel like for health, for me personally, and I've seen that all around me, stress levels have gone off the roof for some people, and that impacts our health. I mean, you've mentioned it on other calls and on your morning hacks on how stress impacts our immune system. So what would you say for you, what are the things that you are personally doing or recommend? Let's say your top three things of when you're in a stressful situation, like with the kids, like with work. What is it that you do from a health perspective to diminish that stress and stay healthy?
Good question. So did you say top three?
Yeah, or you can give us a little more if you want, but let's start with top three.
So I think that supposed to is one of the biggest stressors, right? It's the expectation or the way that things are supposed to happen, or the way you believe things are supposed to happen. So for example, the school day over here goes from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock. And you quite quickly realize in your first week that not only is that the worst way of teaching a child, it is a really difficult way of keeping their attention. But in your mind, you're thinking, we don't want them to be behind when they go back, so we need to follow some sort of, right, it's a guess. Whereas what we do at home, my wife and I, is we always filter everything through both neuroscience principles and evolution principles, and go, actually, is this how it is? And so children, for example, or all humans, lose attention after 10 minutes. So if you want to teach somebody something, after a 10-minute window, their focus diminishes quite significantly. So we actually have found that if we teach our kids in 10-15-minute windows spread out across the day, they tend to learn a lot better. And we also schedule movement every hour as well. So and the movement that they particularly like, right? So just crawling around on the floor or playing Twister, or there's loads of yoga videos and stuff on YouTube as well that are designed for kids that they really enjoy. Going out on their bikes, taking the dog out for a walk, but making sure that we're scheduling learning movement, and knowing that if we give full attention to the kids, we get our own time. But if we're like, I'm going to resist the kids to try and force my work in, that's kind of never really works. But I guess it starts with the supposition that you're working from home, but you're not working from home. You're in quarantine, and you're going to do what little you can, right? Rather than, this is just now working from home. It's a different way of looking at it. So look at your perceptions of how you think it should be, I think, and then challenge those would be a primary one. Schedule movement often, whether it's for yourself or your kids or both, because you don't appreciate, I don't think, how much you probably do move in the office, right? A lot of people will end up with 10,000 steps in a day, which is, that arbitrary number that we're told that we should aim for. But at home, you just don't get that, right? So deliberate movement is a really important one. And then having a schedule that you're not necessarily rigid to, but you try and keep to. So you wake up at a specific time, and then you go through systematic steps and eat at certain times, and all of those things, I think are quite important as well. And you're not putting too much pressure on yourself to imagine that you are a homeschool and that you are working from home, because neither of those things are really true.
I love that distinction, and those 3 hacks are incredible. So your second one was movement. Why is movement important?
Well, the only reason that we have a brain to start with is to be able to move, right? We grew a brain to be able to navigate through the environment so that we could make more of us and we could get to food. And so both things support each other, right? If we don't move, then the brain doesn't get what it needs. And if the brain doesn't get what it needs, then we get sick and unhealthy. So it isn't about getting exercise in. It's not about this division between movement and exercise. It's literally that the processes that happen in our body, like the blood flow and nutrients going where they need to, and waste being removed, and all of those types of things that have to happen inside the body happen based on movement. So when we stop moving, we start dying.
Ooh, can you elaborate on that? We start dying?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the only reason we have a brain is to move. If we stop moving, our brain says, you obviously don't, you're not moving anymore, so you're not living anymore, and deterioration starts happening from not moving.
Oh, wow. So would you say that impacts our work, our ability to relate to others, and all the other areas of our life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, dying definitely impacts every area of life.
Well, dying, but I mean the brain activity, like the fact that we know. I mean, it seems so simple. It feels like it seems so simple to you, like because it's so obvious. But it's not. Like it is. I mean, it is obvious, but for a lot of us, it's not. Like we have not been taught this. We have not said like your brain is there for you to move. If you are not moving, you are dying. Like it sounds a little extreme, but really that's what's happening. Our brain activity diminishes, right? That's my what I'm
Sure.
understanding. That we then can't be as creative. We can't be like. How does it really truly impact? I think diving into that will make our audience, make me, and everybody understand how crucial it is, and not just because saying oh it's dying, it's like oh okay really, but really what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important distinction to make, I think, is that the amount that somebody moves isn't necessarily a choice that they're making, right? We don't have a load of people that are choosing to exercise, a load of people that are choosing not to exercise, right? If we look at early zoos, for example, the monkeys that they put monkeys into enclosures, and those monkeys didn't move very much, and they didn't move very much, and they got sick, and they got depressed, and they died quite young. Okay, and the reason that that happened was because their environment didn't mimic the environment that they grew up in, that they were made in, and they didn't have the food that they ate in the wild. Basically, they just put them into bare enclosures and chucked in junk food, right? And when they started mimicking the natural environment and feeding them from the natural environment, the monkeys started to play, right? So all mammals, including humans, physically play when they feel safe in their environment. And so if we find an extreme, a human that isn't exercising and a human that physically plays a lot, so let's say children, most children will physically play a lot, but then something happens at school and at home that affects each of those children differently. Okay, so one child will be praised a lot and for their activity. Let's say they become an athlete because of the amount of praise they got for it, and they move a lot. Let's say another child is praised a bit, but is only allowed to move when they get their work done. And maybe those people exercise a lot, or maybe they've got so much work that they never get the work done. And some other children were told you shouldn't move because you're not good at moving. And they carry that belief forward, and it just runs on autopilot for their whole lives. And now you've got the non-movers because it's threatening to their brain. You've got the move when the work is done because if the work isn't finished, it's not yet safe to exercise. And then you've got the move lots because I was praised for doing it. And that's just kind of the way that we've got society set up at the moment.
Wow. And so how do you support us in creating that shift?
I guess you dig into finding those things. You first go, okay, what is my intellectual belief, right? So we all have intellectual beliefs that are most people believe they should exercise. Those people that do exercise, that's an actual belief, okay? And an actual belief is created as that seed at that really young age. So first and foremost, we need to go, what is my actual belief? Because my actual belief is just my behaviors. That's the stuff that I actually believe, that I've got evidence to support. And then we start looking at, I want my actual belief to align with my intellectual belief because I want to become an exerciser. And then we need to start unpicking that. Why is it that I don't exercise? How do I feel about exercise? When did that first happen to me? What do I categorize as exercise? What exercise movement do I actually love? that I perhaps don't see as formal exercise, and could I introduce more of that into my life?
And it doesn't have to be a lot, right? I mean, with your morning hacks, it's really just a few minutes that if you start introducing that on a daily basis, it creates a big shift, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of the hacks is that it is about changing your internal environment to support health. So the things that I've mentioned, like nutrients getting to where they need to go, there being enough nutrients present, the digestive system working better, your lymphatic system removing waste, you absorbing oxygen rather than just breathing it in and out, but actually properly absorbing it, you're not over breathing, things like that make a huge difference to your health if those things are working properly. So, I mean, that's what the health hacks are all about, but also this conversation about if you're not a mover at the moment, forcing it in is probably just going to reinforce your belief that you're not an exerciser, rather than going back to the origin of that story and finding out, you know, what is it that you believe, that you genuinely believe about exercise, and, you know, have you always had a negative relationship with it, and where did that start? And go and talk to that child who was put off exercise, and take the grown up to that child.
That's such an interesting idea to yeah, I love that. The forcing it is, it's like people when, it might be different, but what I relate to is when people go into diets and they go crazy on dieting. And then once they're off the diet, it gets even worse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the exact same mechanism, because if you say, at the moment I am eating like this, I need willpower to eat like this. And willpower resides in the human part of your brain. So as soon as stress kicks in, and you know, as life does, things become overwhelming, you drop the thing that hadn't become a habit, right? You default to your habits. So then you reverse back to the other diet, and the story that you're left with is, I'm not good enough to be able to do that. So you lose confidence, self-esteem goes lower, and your brain says, this is threatening, keep away from it. So every time you try a diet that requires some degree of willpower from you to stick to, you have decided to enter on a journey that will always lead to more evidence that you're not good enough to do it.
Oh my goodness, I can so see that. I can so see that. And while you're talking, I'm thinking, and I wonder for those who are watching, please leave your comments. I've been, I see some of you are on Facebook. Hey guys. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to post them on the Q&A if you're watching us on Zoom. If not, then on the Facebook page as well, on the comment section. So one of my questions, I think one of the things that's been going on through my head is like, okay, when I was a kid, I was working out quite a lot. I mean, not working out per se going to the gym, but I had so many physical activities. Like every day after school, I always had something, whether it's ballet, whether it was tennis, whether it was basketball, volleyball. Like I did so many different sports growing up until I went to boarding school. And then I was kind of left to my own. I could do it if I wanted to, but if I didn't want to, I didn't really have to do it. And so it started dying off. Like I started prefer doing more art stuff and doing different art activities. So how do I know, right? Because it's like, I understand the concept of like, okay, something in the past has had impact on my relationship to going to work out. How do you find that, what that is, and fix that or change that or shift that perspective to then not have to use that much willpower today? Like, how do you find out?
Sure. Well, willpower, I guess, a lot like motivation, is essentially saying, I don't really want to do it. And which is fine, right? But acknowledging I don't really want to do it is a powerful first step that basically says to you, what is it? Because it is something I don't want to do. So what do I want to do? What would allow me to move but also be something that I do want to do. You know, the real problem with scheduled exercise that is essentially scheduled by someone else saying, I'm going to take you here, is that the habit that you're learning is passing the responsibility of your exercise to somebody else, right? And that's a huge issue with the I guess with families who want certain things for their children, will try and construct their habits for them, but you can't construct habits for someone else. It's like that you go into the military for 7 years, right, and you make your own bed every single morning. Well, the very next day after people leave the military, fewer than half actually make their bed the following day. So 7 years of every day and the habit has gone, right? Because it wasn't ever a habit. The habit is when the basal ganglia in your brain adopts a certain behavior as being successful based on your criteria of what success looks like, right? So happiness, we get happiness when we've achieved our goals, right? So we have a goal for every single situation, and we get happy hormones, dopamine and oxytocin hormones. When we've achieved that goal, we go, oh, that makes me feel happy. But habit isn't created by repetition. So despite the fact that you went every single day, a habit wasn't being formed, or rather it was just not an exercise habit, but a let somebody take you to a place and set everything up for you habit.
Wow, that is so enlightening. That really is. And you know what's really funny? Every time I go out, I actually work out and I enjoy it, is when I go to classes. When I have like classes and I sign up for the class like a day or two before, or I sometimes sign up for a bunch of them. Oh, I used to. Now we don't have classes, but and if I don't show up, they'll charge me.
Yeah.
So, right. So like I have to go, and then I really enjoy it because I'm with other people, and it's like way back when I was the kid.
Yeah, you're just setting up the same mechanism. Yeah.
The same thing. So so if I want to shift that right now, right? So some of us might have that habit of like, I know that there's classes online and there's things like that. What is your recommendation? For example, I would love to shift that. I would love to like be like you, Ed, and just go like, I'm just going to work out. This is what makes me feel good every morning. I'm assuming that that's how you feel. I don't know.
I guess first and foremost, it's knowing that there's nothing wrong with using that leverage, right? You go, that's how the habit was formed for me. So the quickest way for me to have an exercise habit is to use that leverage on myself, right? So to get yourself to consistently exercise, you do it that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then if you wanted to create a new habit of doing something, then starting small and attaching it to another habit is generally powerful, right? So the big thing about my health hacks is that most of them only take a few minutes. And if you do something for a few minutes and you essentially get paid for it, right? I don't mean financially, I just mean you get a tangible reward for it. You go, I did this, it took me 30 seconds, and I felt better afterwards. Then you start looking for stuff to tag on to it. Yeah. So if you go, I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to jump up and down 100 times, right? And then that was easy. It took 1 minute, and you notice across the course of the day that you had more energy to start the day. You felt better throughout the day, and you notice those things. You've essentially been paid by jumping up and down 100 times, and it didn't take very long and it was easy. So it comes with, first, is it really, really simple? What's the minimum effective dose and to see a reward? And as soon as you see a reward for doing it, you either just go, I'm just going to keep that habit, or you go, I want more of that. And you start becoming willing to grow that thing.
Oh my goodness, I love it. 100 jumps or some jumping jacks every single morning, and I'll let you know how that went next week. I'm committing to that. I'm excited. So Sarah is asking on the Q&A. Thank you so much, Sarah. Hi. So Ed, how do you define a habit?
A habit is a behavior that has been adopted primarily by the basal ganglia in your brain. Okay, that's how you define a habit in neuroscience terms. But in real terms, it is I feel a certain way and I follow a routine because of that. So it's automatic. Just like most people don't get to work and go, I forgot to brush my teeth, right? Because it's been ingrained as a habit. And most of the first hour of most people's day is a habit, because the brain has adopted that thing as saying that this takes low energy. I'm going to, based on the pattern that I recognize, I've cued a behavior. So it's stimulus and then action. And once you've got enough different stimulus, generally environmental stimulus, it just triggers you to do that action rather than you having to have any kind of thought process involved in it.
Love that. And talking about habits, Sarah has a second question, and in fitness habits and mindset. So her question is, what books do you recommend based on healthy mindset with habits for fitness?
I don't know any books for habits for fitness specifically, but I've just recently read a book called How Emotions Are Made. That's a really good book around habits. There's a book called The Power of Habits by, I'm going to butcher his name, Charles Duhigg or something like that, which kind of teaches how habits are made, with some really interesting stories around Febreze and why we started brushing our teeth, and just kind of simplifies things into cue, routine, and reward as to being kind of like the makeup of habits and how to construct them. That's a pretty decent book as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for those questions, Sarah. Keep them coming. And those of you on Facebook watching us as well. So I guess my next question, I mean, I love that. I love I think that it's not only, before I go to the next question, I just want to refer back to what you were saying about habits and it doesn't only relate to fitness, right? I feel like me doing my jumping jacks or my 100 jumps every single morning will create a different perspective and different habits or mindset around fitness, but it also will help me form other healthy habits. So reading about not necessarily just fitness habits in terms of mindset in general and habits in general, it will also impact on fitness. So those are super great recommendations. Thank you. All right. So in regards to that, in terms of habits, what are the things that you used to do? That's my question, right? Because we're all evolving. That you used to do that the Ed of today is like, oh my goodness, no, that was not what I want. That's not right. If you had to name a few.
Oh, well, I guess I used to smoke.
That's
I
a
used
big
to
one.
drink a lot. I guess those are two really big ones that are very different now for me. I used to think that I wasn't very academic / lazy. I used to be shy or believe that I was shy. So, I mean, those four were the subject of my recent TED talk of kind of traits that were either medication for not wanting to feel a certain way, or they were things that started with an incident when I was younger, that then my brain just started seeing evidence that reinforced those beliefs.
Wow. Smoking and heavy drinking, I would have never imagined. What shifted?
Knowing that I could shift it, actually. So learning that it was possible to shift those things, right? So it started off with when I was 4, my first day in primary school. That's kind of the youngest school in the UK. I was being dropped off at school by my mum, and for some reason or other, I really didn't want to be left behind. So I started fighting and screaming and really battling not to be left behind. And the story that was kind of constructed around that enough people told me was it was because I was shy, right? And essentially, I now know from a neuroscience perspective that all new things are threatening. And anytime we are under threat, we fight, flight, or freeze. And the thing that I'd chosen to do was fight, whereas many others might choose a different system for fight, flight, or freeze, right? Most people who clam up and don't talk in social settings are doing the same thing as those people who can't stop talking in social settings. They're just using a different way to protect themselves, right? So I believed that I was shy, but I also love connecting with people. So the best way I found to connect with people when I became a teenager and get to know new people was to medicate the feeling of shyness with cigarettes and alcohol, which worked really well, let me tell you. They're both very, very powerful tools if you want to connect to a lot of people and you're shy. But not that I recommend them, they just work really well. But then I learned kind of the neuroscience understanding of this origin of, and then the reinforcement that came, and I kind of just revisited those things, and then the need for both of those things just disappeared.
Oh, wow. So just understanding where it came from made you go, oh, I don't need this.
Basically, yeah. I mean, that's certainly a simplified way of doing, but going back and realizing that actually shyness is contextual, and I can actually look at each instance where I'm shy and say, okay, that one was unique in these characteristics, and it isn't the same as this one, right? So somewhere where I'm being asked questions about something that I've been studying for 15, 16 years and working with, means that there's no need for shyness, because there's confidence and there's certainty around what I'm saying, right? But then in a different setting where there is uncertainty around what I'm saying, then maybe there's a reason for shyness there, because I'm worried about judgment, criticism, failure to meet expectations. So now my brain is worried. So then I can pull that out and go, okay, let's look at that. Okay, don't pretend that you know things that you don't. Okay, and now that's removed my brain's perceived need to achieve a certain level, which again is what constructs shyness in a lot of people. So now I've removed that threat because I'm comfortable with saying, yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Wow, that is, thank you so much for sharing that story and that path, because I feel so many can relate. We can totally relate, and we've all felt shy at moments. Oh my goodness, thank you. And so we have a couple more questions, if that's all right. We have an anonymous question. So here, do you have a get up and go routine? what do you recommend for us who are just starting out and want to get moving in the morning? Right now, I've been feeling overwhelmed because of everything going on at home and the world.
Um, so I generally come back to those types of things with more questions around the overwhelm, right? But my get up and go routine starts about 8 hours before, because if you're not feeling like you've got get up and go, then you probably haven't had a great night's sleep, right? So I would start it off with making sure that I'm hydrated and that my room is very clean, dust free, and very tidy, so that I have the best possible night's sleep. And I'd start looking at all of the things around sleep hygiene, right? Because a lot of the feeling that you get in the morning is based on how well did you actually sleep. And then something that happens every morning is quite often we check in and we go, do I feel like getting up or not? And then we let our brain speak. And most often, if we don't have the I need to get up now, then we'll let our brain speak and convince us to stay put. So something that's really useful is counting yourself out of bed. So just as soon as you open your eyes, you just start counting, because it distracts your brain enough for you to not have that conversation. So you just start counting 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. That was me getting out of bed. You just count yourself out of bed. So I do that. Then at the end of my bed, I have a pint of water with a pinch of rock salt in it. And I drink that pint of water. The salt is so that you absorb the water better, which makes a huge difference. And then I will go into the my shower room, and I'll do some neuroscience things that are available on the morning hacks that I do. But essentially, it's stuff to wake up my brain, make it more alert. Then I jump 100 times, I have a shower. Basically, routine continues throughout the rest of the day, but those things are really useful things that I do on the kind of like my minimum effective dose first thing in the morning.
I love that. And we have one of our attendees saying, I love it. This is awesome. Can you talk more about sleep hygiene?
Yes, I can. I can talk lots about sleep hygiene. So our body produces more melatonin, which is the sleepy hormone, let's say, when the room is very dark. So having a very dark room is important. We naturally sleep when it's colder, right? So sun goes down, world gets cold, and then we fall asleep because it being cold. So making sure that your room is as cold as you can manage it, without waking up in the night because it's cold, right? So as cool as you can have it be. So don't worry about that being snug and warm for the first 10 minutes. You want to be able to relax for the first 10 minutes and just get used to the fact that you're cold, and then naturally warm up as you do tend to do when you get into bed. But that'll help you fall asleep. Some glasses, some blue lens glasses, some blue light glasses are a really low cost, really powerful thing that you can do 3 or 4 hours before bed, so that your brain starts calibrating with the idea that the sun has gone down. That will really help lower your cortisol levels and increase your melatonin levels, because this is what you want to do to fall asleep. Stress hormones down, sleepy hormones up. Things that keep the stress hormones up are sudden requirements of energy that you hadn't expected, light, warmth, mess, thinking about work, checking emails, still wearing the clothes that you wore while you were working, and sitting in the same place, having devices that you used for work around you, like your laptop or your phone or anything like that. Having clear divides between home life and work life is really important now that you're working from home and you've got this overlap. I don't know if you've ever walked along a place and suddenly had a memory flash to you of a time that you were there. In fact, I do know that you've ever had that. Everybody's had that, right? And that is because your brain has got a story that is associated with that place. And our brain has that for everywhere that we've been. We have neuro associations that kind of, if you haven't had many stories in that place, you'll actually get that story flashed to you. But we get it with absolutely everything in our lives. And if your sofa, for example, is associated with work and relaxation, then your nervous system is just going to stay in a weird kind of balance between the two. We may be working, we may be relaxing. So having a clear divide between those is going to be really important. And then not ever taking any work items into your bedroom, right? You shouldn't ever do anything in your bedroom other than, well, two things, and one of them's not work. And
that was very funny. I love that. I love that the hacks and the fact you mentioned, like your morning routine starts in the evening, and the glasses and the hydrating and it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. So thank you so much for elaborating on that. I love that. I made notes. I'm taking a bunch of notes. Thank you so much. Ed, one of the questions, if you, we were talking about the books. Yes, Sarah, we will post those books on the comment section on the Facebook. The recording will be available as well on the Facebook group. So if there's anything that you've missed or you showed up a little later than the start time, don't worry, it'll be, this call is being recorded and you can catch the beginning and review it. And we will post those name of books at the bottom. All right. I'm seeing the time just flew by, Ed. Like, it's been incredible. Yeah, well, just before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts for this week?
I guess to start off with, to end up with how we started, and just say, lose the idea that you are homeschooling or working from home. You're not. You're in quarantine, and so don't be too hard on yourself, because anytime you're getting stressed, generally it's because you've got this idea of how it should be or what you should be doing, and these are strange times indeed. So take the pressure off yourself a little bit.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ed. It was such a pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you for all your amazing tips and tricks and hacks. Have an incredible rest of your evening. I think it's getting the afternoon where you're at. And
6 o'clock here, yeah.
6 o'clock, yep. And for me, it's lunchtime. So wherever you are in the world, have a great rest of your day. Oh my goodness, today has been interesting. Speaking. Great rest of your day. Sign up on www.hackmankind.com, where first 1,000 members are free. So come on. I mean, I'm telling Peter, tell me, can we just keep it open for a little longer? Can we keep it open for a little longer? I just want you to take advantage of this. So head on over, go to the members. It will not be free for a long time, for much longer. So head on over, share with your friends, share with your family, and of course, sign up, follow us on Facebook. We now have also our challenge of the day. So head on over there. We have our challenge of the day. And right now, for those who are members, we have access to our angel calls. So make sure that check your emails every morning. You have the link. Head on over, log in, and we have our angel calls in just a few minutes at noon Eastern time. Thank you so much, Ed. Take care.
Thank you.
Next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.